My name is Mark McIver and I'm the owner and founder of SliderCuts. Barbering to me is essentially cutting hair, but it's a little bit more than that. It's also the community which you build. It's also helping people. Like, a lot of people don't realize that back in the days, we're talking about, hundreds of years ago, how much was done in a barbershop. From, which they still do now, some piercings to some surgeries and so on. It was that spot where anything to do with cutting, whether it's to do with like skin or anything like that was what you went to. Now, we don't do that in this day and age, but for me, there's a similar thing where it comes to, it's a bit more than cutting hair. It's a place of refuge, therapy, bonding, meeting up and just communing. So barbering to me is haircuts with a side of community. I remember earlier in my career, we're talking about, 15, 16, 17, 18 years ago, right? When I came to a realization that this was more than a job of just cutting hair. And where that realization came from was because there were people in the area where I was working where they were having problems with each other. And we were in the middle, kind of like resolving feuds and trying to stop problems from happening with each other and talking to one side and talking to another side. And you just come to realize this is more than cutting hair. So it's not even like it's more than a job. It's almost like part of the job is cutting hair, but then also it's kind of like conflict resolution. Like I said before, therapy, bringing people together, helping people where you can. So when people even say, barbering is more than a job, no, I will kind of rebuttal that. It is still a job. It's just that you don't realize what the full job is. One of the best feelings I get from cutting hair is when a client leaves the chair, stands up, looks in the mirror, and they do this, and they just start smiling. At that moment, I'm like, yes, I've done my job correctly, because the client is happy. And for me, that brings me joy. The reason I show up every day is because it's a commitment I've made. If I say to you, I'm gonna be here at 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 6 in the morning, whenever it is, I've made an agreement with you, so I have to be here. It's the discipline, it's the honor. So I show up every day because we have an agreement for me to show up every day. And outside of that, I have to show up every day because it pays my bills. I think that the barbershop is so important in the community. And one of the major reasons why is because the barbershop is one of the few places where no matter where you are at in life, you are all in one spot. There's not many places like that in Britain where someone who sweeps the streets can be in the same space as someone who is the heavyweight champion of the world, or a solicitor, or a judge, an accountant, the person that stacks boxes. It's not about what job is good or what job's bad, nothing like that at all. It's just that no matter what walk of life you're from, the barbershop is the place where everybody meets up and communes. And that's why I think it's one of the most important spaces in a community, because it means that there's networking that can happen. The solicitor can give advice to the person that's going through problems. A young person may come in who needs an internship, which happened with me yesterday, and I spoke to someone who I know who's in that industry to say, look, can you help this person out? And he's like, yeah, I'll help him out. And that's why, and these are just a few of the examples to say, and these are just a few of the examples as to why the barbershop is so important to the community. The barbershop is definitely the original podcast, because it's the place where everybody had an opinion and everybody had a voice. Because that's the difference. In podcasts now, they say everybody's got a voice now. And that was the barbershop. Debates, arguments, whether you were right, wrong, or just a little bit misunderstood, whatever it was, right? In the barbershop was the place where everybody voiced their opinion. So when you're looking at podcasts now on YouTube and so on, these are just the barbershop on camera. The role that I feel the barbershop plays in people's lives is so vast. But majorly, I would say we are therapists and counselors to our clients. Now, what I would say is not everybody is a good counselor or good therapist, but nevertheless, you're in a position where you are a therapist/counselor. So we can play positive roles or negative roles, and I've seen it. I've seen barbers giving what I would see as bad advice to clients, and barbers giving clients good advice. And for some reason, the clients listen and take it on board. And that's why I think it's really important that actually barbers understand the position they have in people's lives, so that they can influence them in the right way and not tell them to do silly things that's going to jeopardize their lives, but instead say, look, maybe stay out of that, and maybe, calm down, maybe not have so many arguments, maybe when you're talking with your partner, lower your voice. I remember the other day I said to a client, right, he was telling me about some things that were going on in his life, and I said to him, do you know what? I feel that you probably kind of like jump kind of to conclusions and you don't really let people talk. I think you should really maybe give people some time. And it was something along those lines, right? And he said to me, that's mad. And I'm like, why? He's like, oh, because you only see me for like this short half an hour space of time. And you're saying to me things that people in my life who know me properly say. And he's like, right, that's mad that you actually see that. And I'm like, yeah, because I kind of see it with our little interactions, right? So I feel like, you know, when you're interacting in everyday life, whether it's with your girlfriend, your flatmate, whatever it is, right? You should just be wary of those things there. And he took it on board because he was just like, it's mad that you actually can see that, right? But it made him really think and analyze his life. Now, what's funny is I'm not the first person to tell him this. His girlfriend may have told him, his sister, his brother, his mum, his dad, his friends may have told him. But for some reason, when I told him, it hit home, and now he's thinking I need to really think about life and think about how I'm, you know, operating in my day-to-day life. So yeah, we play a major role, and we are therapists. We're more than barbers. Well, I say we're more than people that cut hair. We're therapists, we're counselors, and we're people that can give advice and people that people listen to. A great barber to me is essentially someone who can cut hair very well. That's the main thing. Aligned with that would be great customer service. And aligned with that would be someone who understands their clients, listens to their clients, and advises their clients correctly. If you have those three things, the customer service, the haircuts, and the position of like a therapist / counselor down, I think you are a great barber. But just to say to this, even if you don't have the therapist part down, if you give good customer service and great haircuts, you are a great barber. My signature touch, the thing which I think that people know me most for or appreciate the most when I'm cutting their hair is the talking element and the advice. So people can get haircuts from other people which are as good as my haircuts, even better to be honest. But I think people really appreciate the advice they get from me. And the reason why I know that is because there's people who have booked haircuts with me who cut with other people who are happy with those haircuts, but they booked with me because they want advice. And they said that to me. They're like, look, I booked this space not because of the haircut. I just need some advice. So I think that is my signature thing, is the advice people get in the chair. The way I stay sharp with my skills, my creativity, my barbering, all around, is I'm honest with myself. I'm just very honest. I look around, I see what people are doing that are better than me. I look online, I look at haircuts, I look at the services people are providing. I'm always just aware of what's going on around me and in the industry. And I'm just honest. And people have said to me quite often, like, you know, Ray, you know, I wouldn't expect you to be like that. And I'm like, well, the only way I can develop and keep moving is to be honest. And it's a promise I also made to myself about 20 to 25 years ago at the beginning of my career when I said, God, please do not ever let me be in a place where I'm too arrogant or I'm too blind to see where I'm actually at and see the truth about myself. And from there, I've always just kind of held to that. And I've seen older barbers where I'm like, that person's delusional now. Like, he doesn't even see that, you know, his haircuts are falling or his customer service isn't good. He's always just blaming the client. And when I see things like that, I'm always like, oh God, please. I need to always remember that promise. I don't want to be in that place. And that's why I'm over honest. I'm over critical of myself, because I just don't want to be in a place where everybody else is saying that I'm a rubbish barber, but I'm saying I'm the best barber. I'm good. I got the best fades. I got the best shape ups. No, you need to stay on top of your game by studying the people around you and studying people online and seeing what the industry and seeing what's happening in the industry. And that's how I stay at the level which I'm at. From the chair, I have learned so much, too much to list here. But I'll say this. I've learned about business because I cut clients and we're talking about things like, you know, how they're running their business. And when they're telling me about how they're running their business, they're teaching me. I've learned about relationships. You know, even though I've been married for like 13 and a half years, when I'm talking to someone, they may be more wise than me when it comes to relationships. And so I'll be listening to them saying, okay, cool, that makes sense, really. I should really bring that into my relationship. And actually, maybe I've been going wrong with the way I've been, you know, dealing with my relationship or my children or my wife or my friends, whatever relationship it is, right? So I have learned so much. I can't list it. I've learned so much from the chair that has helped me in my day-to-day life. The advice that I give to my younger self, which is always the same piece of advice, would be continue on the path that you're going. And it's going to be lonely, and there's going to be times when you're going to be like, it seems like it's going right for everybody else, but just continue, stay focused, and it will end well. I think one of the biggest lessons that barbering has taught me has just been the cycle of life. Because I've been cutting hair professionally now for like around 22 years, and I've seen people grow up, pass away. I've seen people blow up and fall off. I've seen people down and out and then blow up. I've seen people critical and then come back to full life. So it's just a cycle of life that has taught me, and that life is so precious. And at a snapshot, you can lose everything, but also at a snapshot, you can gain everything. So it's really just taught me that this is just life. So hold on to the things that are really important and figure out in your life, what do you actually value, and spend time investing into that. The most important tool in my barber set is my clippers. And the reason why I say it's the clippers is because when I started cutting hair, we only had a clipper. There were none of these shaving tools, there was no trimmers, there was nothing. It was just a clipper. So we did everything with one clipper. Patterns, shape-ups, fades, shaving, everything. So that's the most important tool, because if I could only use one thing to produce a haircut, it'd be a clipper. Fades or lineups, lineups. Clippers or scissors, clippers. The craziest request I've ever had was someone asking me if I could cut a pattern into an area that I shouldn't be even around that area. It was a woman who said to me if I could shave a pattern into a particular area, and I said no. And they were just saying to me, but you're supposed to be professional and you cut hair, right? And I was like, yeah, I cut hair, but I don't do that. And they're like, oh yeah, you're not professional, and saying all this stuff there. And I said, look, no, I'm not doing that. And that was it. But that's like the craziest request I ever had. A haircut that changed my life has to be two haircuts. One, I can't remember this guy's name, but when I was younger, because this is also what got me into like looking at barbering, there was a guy on a show called Hang Time, and he used to have like a, I can't remember, maybe it was like a number 2, maybe number 3 on top with a skin fade. And that's one of the first haircuts as a child that I looked at, and I was like, oh, like when I get older, I want a haircut like that. And then years later, another haircut that really inspired me and really kind of like shaped how I looked at barbering was Carlton from Fresh Prince. And his haircut was just always so slick. I remember being like, that haircut was so smooth on the top. The fade was so clean. It's like, where did it start? Where did it finish? The shape up looked clean. And I was just like, yo, like if I could ever produce a haircut like that, I was like, oh, that would be amazing. So those are two haircuts that come to my mind straight away, which is like, they really shaped my thinking and really kind of influenced me. In life, my biggest inspiration, to be very honest, I've had a bunch of different inspirations for different elements of my life, different walks, different seasons of my life. But the person that comes to my mind straight away would be my older brother, Philip, who passed away about 11 years ago. And the reason why I say he's one of my biggest inspirations is because from growing up, I always looked up to him. And people used to say, you know, we looked exactly the same. And his way of looking at life was like no one else I knew. He just did the things he wanted to do, simply. Like, and I always used to look at him and be like, as example, he said he's going to live in another country. And I'm like, you know, what are you going to do for work? And he was just like, I'll figure out something, could teach English, could do this, could do that, But the reason why he's such an inspiration to me is because he always did the things he wanted to do. And he never worried about whether anybody else wanted to do it or not. So if he wanted to go and play football, if no one's going to be there, he'll go play football. If he wanted to go on holiday, and he did this from young, he went on holiday by himself. And I used to be like, oh, rah, I could never go on holiday by myself. But as I got older, I was just like, actually, I want to take on those elements. Where it's like, if there's a restaurant I want to go to and nobody wants to come, go and eat in a restaurant. And I got that from him. So sometimes people look at me and say I'm kind of outgoing, but that's the influence of my older brother and how he looked at life. So when he even passed away suddenly, I remember just thinking, I'm so happy that he lived the way he lived and just did the things he wanted to do. And it inspired me to say, actually, I need to just start doing the things I want to do and not being like, okay, only if he's gonna come with me and only if she's like on it. Like, no, if you wanna go eat in a place, go eat in a place. If you wanna visit a country, visit the country. If you enjoy playing football, go play football. If you like watching football games, go and watch football games. If you like boxing, watch boxing. If people come along with you, let them come along with you. If they don't, then they don't. And that's how my older brother lived. So I'm gonna leave it with that one person. He's one of my biggest inspirations. If I could cut anybody's hair, dead or alive, I'm gonna go with two people, right? The first person would be Jesus. And the reason why I'm a Christian it's my faith. There's so much questions which I have, all right? So that would be the first person. And the second person would be my dad. My dad passed away a couple years ago, and I didn't really know my dad either. He wasn't really around throughout my whole life. And when he passed away, I realized there's so much of my life and so much of that side of my family I don't know about. So if I could cut his hair, that would be the person I cut, because we could have great conversations. And as people know, most of the deepest conversations happen in the barber chair. And that's why I would actually like to cut my dad, because we could have those conversations and it could be kind of like facilitated by the barber chair. The way I'd say that my family has influenced me through my barbering journey is that they were the start of my barbering journey. Because we never had money to go to the barbershop, my mum was cutting my hair and my older brothers were cutting my hair. So that influenced the start. Because if we had money, or if my brothers were giving me good haircuts, I might not be a barber right now. No, I probably wouldn't be a barber right now, because I'm in a barbershop anyway. The reason why I started cutting hair is because we didn't have any money to go to the barbershop. So I was like, the haircuts my mum giving me, my mum's giving me a bald head. My older brother's giving me one level, no shape up, no fade. I was like, I need a good haircut, so I'm gonna try it myself. Even though I was inspired from young looking at haircuts on TV, I probably would have just been like, okay, these are the haircuts I'm getting in the barbershop. But because I never had that, I had to try it on myself. So my family and the way I grew up was the biggest influence into leading me into being a barber. The first person I ever cut was me. I was my first client, and I messed myself up badly. And then what was funny is, I was running away from my mum's haircut, which was a bald head, but I messed myself up so bad that I had to give myself a bald head. So, full circle. Has my work as a barber changed the way people see me? Do you know what? I don't know. I'm not sure, because you never fully know how people see you. You only know what people tell you. But then what you'll find out in life is someone tells you this, but then behind your back they say something else. So, to be honest, I'm not sure how people actually see me. There's a way I hope people see me, you know, but you're never sure, so I'm not sure, to be honest. My proudest moment of my career, I think, would be a random moment that no one was even privy to. I was in a barbershop, I was cutting, and it might have been even recently, and everybody was cutting hair. The shop was packed up, all the barbers were here cutting hair, and I looked around and I was kind of like, oh, rare. Like, the shop is looking the way I want it to look. We're filled up with barbers. Everybody's happy, smiling. They're all making money. And I looked around, I was just kind of like, this is it. Like, this is what I was building towards. And no one was privy to this moment. It was almost like this emotional moment in myself where I was just like, look at everyone, and it's filled up. Everyone's chatting, everyone's vibing, the customers are making jokes, the barbers are making jokes with their clients, and it was just like, everybody's happy. And I was like, this is what I wanted to build. So that, I think, is one of the proudest moments I've had.